Hi, I'm Phyllis from southernfrugal.com. This morning I got my baking pans, and so I'm making a jelly roll. Now these are jelly rolls like you could get in filling stations in the 1950s. Probably I remember getting the first one in about 1955, 56, and I think that Hostess made those. I'm not really sure, but they were filled with raspberry jelly, and they were really good. They were about that long and about that big around, and they were just delicious. So that's what we're making this morning, only we're making the larger version. Okay, here we go. Now this recipe for the jelly roll is just very simple, but the first thing you'll need to do is grease your pan, then put wax paper in. Now, parchment paper doesn't, or at least it doesn't work for me, not with a jelly roll. You need to use wax paper. And then you get all the air bubbles out, and then you'll grease the wax paper and then just give it a light dusting of flour. Now here's the recipe. You'll need 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and of course I grease the pan with Crisco. So there's a 3/4 of a cup of flour, 1/3 cup water, 3/4 of a cup of red raspberry jam. That's what I use. Now you could use any type jelly you want. You could even use that mint jelly. I've seen that before too. Alright, and so you'll need 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt and 1 cup of sugar and 1 teaspoon of vanilla, which is about all that's left in my bottle, and 3 large eggs. Now I'm going to beat these eggs for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to slowly add in the sugar. So let's go over the recipe one more time. 3 large eggs, 1 cup of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 3/4 a cup of flour, and 1/3 cup of water. And there in the back is about 3/4 a cup of some type of jam. Now the standard one that was always used in jelly rolls was always raspberry jam, and that's the Smucker's. It's seedless red raspberry jam. Alright, let me get my camera set up, and I'm going to go ahead and beat these eggs, and we'll be back. Okay, we have completed beating the eggs now. See how long you beat them? Until they're just really thick and totally full of air. Now we're going to just gradually add the 1 cup of sugar. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my salt in simply because it's sea salt, and I want it's bigger crystals, so I want to make sure it dissolves. So I'm going to go ahead and put my 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt in. And I'm going to gradually add in the 1 cup of sugar while I'm beating on high. So really this is only eggs and sugar, and I went ahead and put the salt in. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the vanilla in, then I'm going to gradually add the flour and the water. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put my vanilla in. And just mix that in a little bit. Okay, now what has happened here is first I beat the eggs for a full 5 minutes at the highest speed on my mixer, Now my little hand mixer also has a burst little button, and I actually hold that down, which gives it an even higher speed. And you want to make sure you beat those eggs for the full 5 minutes, and really maybe even a little longer. Okay, so now we're ready to add our flour in. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that in. Just beat it just a little bit on low. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of the water. And now a little bit more. Well, I'll just go ahead and use the rest of the flour now. And then I'll do the rest of the water while the beater's still going. Now the last thing I'm going to add is going to be the 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So I'm just going to sprinkle that in. Okay, we are ready to pour this in the pan. Now you don't want to overbeat it once you've got the flour in there. And notice the last thing I put in was the baking powder. Alright, dump this in our pan. Now if there's flour around the side or whatever, don't even worry about that. It will not stay like that once you start baking it. Now, we're going to bake this at 375 degrees, anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes. And of course that would depend on your oven, but you don't want to walk away because it will cook pretty quick at 375 degrees. Alright, I think we've got all that. And really, making a jelly roll is more about technique than anything. And I would say the most important things are to make sure you beat the eggs the full length of time, 5 minutes or a little longer. Now you see what has happened here is this batter is all full of air. And of course with the eggs, that's what's going to make it very pliable and make it possible for us to roll it up. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the oven, 375 degrees, for really 12 to 15 minutes, depending on your oven. Alright, when this gets ready, we'll be back. Alright, the cake in the oven is almost done. Now, what you'll need to do is, or what I do, is put down some wax paper on the counter. Put a clean dish towel over that, and you want to sprinkle it very generously with powdered sugar. I mean really generously, because you don't want it sticking to the towel. Because what we're going to do, as soon as this cake is done, we're going to flip it out right on this little towel coated with the confectionery sugar. Alright, so we'll be back as soon as that cake buzzer goes off. Okay, the cake is all ready to be dumped out, and I'm going to see if I can do this easily. I have to take it. My oven is not exactly level, and so I wanted to come over the side a little bit. So I'm just going to loosen that. Your oven's probably level. Alright, I think I've got it now. We're going to flip that over onto this towel that's been coated with the confectionery sugar. I can do that without burning myself. See how clean it came out of the pan, other than the place where it went over the edge a little bit. Alright, now the first thing you want to do is remove that wax paper. If I can find a good end here. It should come right off if you can get it started. And just cut any little edges off. A little bit difficult to get off after you loosen the sides of it. Alright, it's really hot. Alright, I'm going to take this off, and when I get it off, we'll be back. Okay, now it took some doing to get this wax paper off, and I don't know what to tell you on that. You just have to take your time and just really go very carefully. And you do need to sort of trim the sides off because they've got kind of a hard edge on them. Alright, so see how this is all foamy and everything. Now what we're going to do now is I'm going to start at this end down here, and I'm going to start rolling it up right in the towel. And just put some of that sugar, just glance it up on top of it. It's okay. In fact, I'm just going to sprinkle it a little bit more with sugar. This powdered sugar. Okay, so we're going to start at this end and just roll it right up in the towel. Now it's still hot. You want kind of a tight roll on that. I'm going to actually flip some of that sugar up there too. Alright. Roll it up, roll it up, roll it up. Alright, now I'm going to put this on a little wire rack and let it completely cool. And that will probably take a good 30 minutes, even longer. And once it's cooled, we'll be back and I'll show you what we do next. Alright, we're back and ready to complete our little jelly roll. You want to gently unroll it from the towel, very, very gently. Let me turn it around so you can see better. Just very, very gently. And I did look up online while I was waiting for this to cool to see if I could find the old little jelly rolls like they had in the 1950s. And wouldn't you know, I couldn't find them. Now, I don't really recall Little Debbie when I was growing up. Maybe they were around and I just didn't know about it. But I do think that the little jelly rolls were made by Hostess because they were always on the little shelf next to those little chocolate donuts with a little swirl on top. So anyway, alright, so we're going to fill this with red raspberry jelly, and this is about 3/4 of a cup, and you want to have it at room temperature, and you want to just beat it around so that it's a little bit runny. That way it'll be easier to spread. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour this out all over this little cake. Now it's going to sink in because when we pulled off the wax paper, we pull off that little bottom edge or that little bottom crust, and it leaves all those little foamy, bubbly things there at the end. Alright, now you want to take the back of a spoon and just gently rub that in, starting at the very, very top corner. Oh, you can't see that, can you? There. Starting at the very top corner. Now it's real important that the cake be completely cool before you start this, because otherwise it very well might crack. But of course if it cracked it'd still be good. It just wouldn't look as pretty. Alright, so just gently spread that out. See, it's all sinking in. It's almost like putting jelly on a piece of toast, really, the way it sinks in. Now you can make these, you can make the cake chocolate, fill it with whipped cream, or fill it with ice cream, and then of course you'd have to put it back in the freezer. You can just fill it with anything you want. Alright, now we are ready to start rolling this up. Spread your little jam out evenly, or as even as you can. Alright, we're ready. Alright, very gently start at this corner and just quickly roll it up. Alright, there we are. Now, I'm going to place this on my baking sheet, which I already cleaned up. Just gently lift it off. Well, actually, I'm going to put some powdered sugar down on there. Make sure nothing sticks to the pan here. I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle it with some of the powdered sugar all over the top of it. And I like to just do the sides and everything. Alright, now we're ready. Just gently pick it up. Place it right on your little dish. Now you can actually buy little jelly roll plates, which would be the right length, of course. Alright. Alright, a little messy, but well worth it. Alright, now we're just going to let this sit for just a minute, and then I'm going to cut it. Show you what it looks like. I'll get my hands cleaned up. Alright, we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, here we are. The jelly roll is complete. And I cut it so y'all could see what it looks like. Now these taste exactly like the jelly rolls I remember from the 1950s, but they were very small and a little bit bigger around than a 50-cent piece. And I used to get them all the time. Alright, if y'all know or remember those little jelly rolls from the 1950s, how about leave me a comment, because I know my memory hadn't failed me on that. I used to eat a lot of them. Alright, we'll see you next time.